I heard about this man. He was looking at himself in the mirror. His wife was standing next to him. He was looking, and he was very sad. He said, "Honey, look at this. My hair is thinning." He said, "I have bags under my eyes. I'm all wrinkled. I look ugly." And she said, "Honey, look at the bright side. Your eyesight is spot on." I want to talk to you today about at peace with God's plan. At peace with God's plan. And I realize that there are many things in life that cause a lot of frustration, okay? And then I was asking, what really causes lots of frustration? And one of the things that make us crazy is when things don't go our way, right? We plan, we design, we strategize, and then things don't go the way we wanted them to go. Or they don't follow the timeline that we plan for things. And then in those days, when that happens to you, you have to remember the words of the prophet Isaiah. You know what Isaiah said? Isaiah said, God's ways are not our ways. And it's a very profound statement. God's ways are not our ways. Because whenever we plan something, whenever we have an idea, whenever we want to achieve something, we believe that everything is under our control. And sometimes we forget, and I don't know why, because to me it's very obvious when you look at the world, that there is actually very little that is under our control. But nothing escapes to God's control. So we believe that there is a godly timeline, but what happens is that timeline, most of the time, does not match our own timeline. So this is something that I believe is important for all of you to realize. And if we don't get it, we get into situations where what we do is we teach God how to do things. Have you ever caught yourself teaching God how to do things? It could be during prayers, could be during conversations with other people, that we said, God, this is the way you should be doing things. And that's not the way it works. A better way is somehow to find a way to trust in God's timeline. But this is it's very important because it's a powerful way to avoid frustration. But don't feel bad. You're not the first people in history that they try to have such attitude to teach God how to do things. If you go to the Torah, when you have people, I believe they were at a way higher spiritual stature that we are, status that we are, they also try to do that and try to tell God how to do things. One of the things that I remember, and one of the early stories in the Torah, is the story of Abraham. Remember that God promised Abraham that Abraham was going to be a father. And Abraham was very old, was in his 80s, and Sarah was also old. But God blessed them with that promise. God brought this blessing that they were going to have a son. And, okay, they believe that that son should come right away. And they start getting frustrating. They start being friction within the marriage because nothing happened. So Abraham tried to show God that there is a faster way for this to happen. So what did he do? What did Abraham do? When he was tired of waiting, he went to have a son with Hagar, the servant, right? Showing God, you see, God, there is a faster way of doing things. We are still paying the consequences of that. because that son was Ishmael, which God loved, by the way, but it was kind of painful for the Jewish people all along history. And that was Abraham trying to teach God how to do things. Because eventually, after 20 years of waiting, when they were both very old, Isaac came into the picture. And I believe that when Isaac came, I could almost hear the voice of God saying, you see, Abraham, you have to be patient. You have to trust God's timeline, because that son finally came, and the blessing that Abraham received 20 years ago came to be and became a reality. Okay? And that brings me to this week's Parsha. Why do I say that? Because in this week's Parsha we have Birkat Kohanim, one of the most beautiful, and according to the rabbis, one of the most powerful blessings that we have in the whole Torah. Why is that? Because God said to Moses, God talked to Aaron and his sons and tell them, this is the way they are going to bless the Jewish people. And then comes the words of the blessing. Yevarechecha Adonai veishmerecha. You know it. Yair Adonai panav elecha v'chuneka. Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom. We sing it all the time. We bless the congregation. The parents bless their children for a bar or bat mitzvah. Became a very powerful and famous blessing. But it's interesting that there are a couple of things with this blessing. Number one, it has safeguards. What do I mean? When God said, Yevarechecha Adonai veishmerecha, may God bless you and guard you. What does it mean that? Because sometimes we don't trust God's blessing. We said, okay, God bless me, but not just bless me. Please, God, also protect the blessing that you just gave me. You know, it's like God is going to do a blessing and then leave you alone. That's not the way it works. But that's okay. God understands that. And God said, God bless you and protect the blessing. Okay? Addressing our anxiety whenever we feel blessed. I don't know if it ever happens to you. That you feel blessed, but then you're anxious. Is God going to take the blessing away from me now? Right? So the blessing said, may God bless you and protect that blessing. And then it's going to say, may God, bring favor to you, but may God also show you God's grace. It means that may you be able to see everything that comes from God that you don't deserve. But again, addressing our anxiety, because sometimes we feel blessed, but we don't see how we are blessed. So may God bless you that you can understand what it is. Okay, because we are human, we need to know. But at the end, you will say, may God bless you with shalom, with peace. Why is that? And I think that last word encapsulates everything that relates to a blessing in Judaism. Because as we learn from Abraham and other situations of life, a blessing can take a long time to be a reality, or at least to us. So what this blessing says, until that time comes, may God bless you with peace, with shalom. May you be able to be at peace with yourself without frustrations, without anxieties, without fears, without questions, until you can perceive the blessing. How do we know this? Because usually when we talk about shalom, when we talk about peace, peace is something that is between people or nations, right? It could be peace between neighbors, peace between countries. So it's a plural. But in this case it says, may God bless you as a singular with peace. If it's just me, what kind of peace is this? And then the rabbis explain, this is the peace that you should feel within yourself. First with yourself. You have to be at peace with yourself, but also at peace with God's plan until you're able to see the blessing coming to be a reality. And this is something that we should learn for every aspect of our lives. Because sometimes we don't see the blessing of God. We believe that the blessing is there, but we don't see it. We look around and turn the news to what happened in Israel. What is the blessing? I read about, peace deals that they didn't go anywhere. So what is the blessing? I forget about international news and I go to locals and I see the fires around and people being displaced and smoke coming to the city, people getting sick. I say, what is the blessing? And then I have to remind myself that sometimes it takes time for us to make sense of things. Sometimes we can never actually do it. We can never make sense of things in this life. And we have to trust that one day in the Olam Haba, in the world to come, everything will make sense. But until that time, listen to this week's blessing. May God bless you with peace. May you be able to preserve the peace within yourself, even if you don't see the blessings, even if the blessing is kind of hidden and you don't perceive that power. So may God bless us all with internal peace so we can stay at peace with God's plan until we can see the benefits of that beautiful blessings that God sends us every day. Shabbat Shalom.